Hi, Natasha.
Hi, good evening.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us, Natasha, here.
First of all, I think I'd like to tell you that you're doing a great job because, had we had this opportunity during the times when we were choosing our careers, I mean, wow, we would have really, made it. And I think congratulations to all the panelists also. They've really done a really good job in explaining, the career options to. Uh,
Thank you.
so I am
So,
Natasha Garg,
yeah, please
and
go
I'm
ahead,
a
Natasha.
practicing lawyer. Now, I think a lot of you must have the question, why is she saying that she's a practicing lawyer, advocate? All these terms are very confusing to the layman, and especially to students. They really don't know, And especially when I introduce myself saying I'm a practicing advocate, they definitely get confused. What should we ask next? I mean, what is exactly that she does, is it the court that she practices that we ask? Is it corporate law? So many questions bombarding people, not just students, even laymen, and they don't know what to ask you
First
also.
of all, beginning with what is law as a career? Like I just said, that we all understand it by the way of Bollywood, but how do
I'll
you say
start.
law
I'll
is?
start. Degrees, law has, because you know what? I see that all these law colleges nowadays have different names to the degree. Let me just start by explaining that there is just one law degree in India, that is an LLB degree. There is nothing else. Okay, so there are two kinds of ways how you can approach this degree. One is you directly from your 12th, after you clear your 12th, you could opt for a 5-year integrated law course, or you could go for a postgrad 3-year course for LLB. But what the degree you will get is an LLB degree. They call it fancy names like BSL LLB, BA LLB, BBA LLB, but it's so no other college, no, there's no other degree except for an LLB degree. First of all, okay. So there may be a change of combination of subjects here and there, in your starting years, 1 or 2 years, but that's all. So rest assured, whatever college you go to, whatever you're getting, don't worry about it. They're all the same. You will come out parallel and equal with every other lawyer in the country. You just need a degree. Um, Now you'll ask me, but there are national law schools and there are various these CLAT colleges and all of that. They promise bigger dreams and hopes. What are they? Why the distinction? Like MBA schools, there are these famous schools and there are unfamous schools. The cream crowd goes to certain schools. Some not so cream crowd goes to certain schools, but eventually the degree is the same. The national, yes, I get a question. I guess, guys, I'd like you all to ask me questions continuously. That will really help
Yes.
me.
So, Natasha, the format that we've been following is that we first take up some questions that I have been brought forward by the students, and at the end, we take up questions from the chat box. The students are continuously pouring in their questions on the chat box,
Okay.
and we take up those questions at the end, like about a 15 minutes from now.
Okay, so I'll cut it short very fast so that we can have those questions. I'd really like to hear your questions.
Yes.
See, for national laws, you have to sit for a CLAT exam. There are various criterions, your marks for the 12th. Some colleges see other curriculars. There are some quotas also for law colleges. So all that is there. Don't worry about it. They're all the same. You get the same degree. The better the college, the better the crowd, the better the network, of course, the better quality of teaching. But apart from that, nothing else. Don't be rejected about a college. That's my first thing. Uh, Now you'll ask me, I want to specialize in criminal law. I want to specialize in taxation laws. So would my degree make a difference? Or would the subjects that I pick make a difference? Not at all. Welcome, surprise, surprise. You can opt for the easiest subjects in law college and get away with it. Get your LLB degree with flying marks, and then choose the harder subjects to practice also. So, as I said, this is for mediocres and clever students. This course is. So, yeah, I mean, it does not matter whether you studied a certain subject in your school, because you didn't have the perception or the vision to study a certain subject at that time, which became prevailing later. At the same time, after LLB, you can do whatever you want. And as I just said, you can start practicing immediately. in any court that you prefer to. Of course, you will have to have the right channel to approach that court, the right mentor, the right person to work under to teach you and allow you to, how to conduct yourself in those courts. But an LLB degree is a level playing field in itself, clears your passage to whatever you want to do under the universe. By which now I'm coming to the part what you want to do. That's the greater choice that you have to make, not the college, not your concern. 5 years, 3 years, you can enjoy in college, but at the same time, you need to have a vision what you want to do later. Because what I'm going to tell you now is about the choice that is the most difficult part of it. What do you want to do next? Right? So traditionally, there are 3 or 4 major fields of law. Okay, 4 major how do you say distinctions. Although now with the advancement, they're really overlapped, and there are lots of permutations. And traditionally, there's corporate law, there is litigation law, and there is in-house legal consultancy. That people opt for legal house. I'll explain each one of them. So corporate law. Every law student that I talk to, they say, I want to do corporate law. This is the most glamorous Harvey Specter style of, things that people have seen about law, swanky, suited up people, high heels, air-conditioned offices, and yes, of course, high-paying salaries. So, law students are mostly, but they really don't know what corporate law is. So I'll just explain a little bit. Corporate law in layman's term is lawyers who don't need to go to court. They work out of an office, just like an MNC does, or a big corporation does. You work out of a swanky office. I'm just saying swanky because that's what the vision is. You work out of an office, okay? This is what the layman thinks. Now, what is corporate law? Big companies, corporates, MNCs, they require legal assistance in their day-to-day functioning, to have agreements with their suppliers, with their shareholders, intersay, documentation for every kind of functioning, restructuring, taking over another company, selling shares, buying shares, spinning off, debt restructuring, everything, collaboration with some company, with some brand, with any person, even hiring their own persons, salary, staff. So everything, you need documentation to support everything that you've decided, you've discussed, you want to go ahead with. Mandatory documentations also. So corporate law essentially deals with documenting and advising companies on the risks involved in certain decisions that a company can take and not take, as well as documenting everything. So this is what it is. I'm making it very boring. I'm so sorry, guys, but
No, Natasha, I think it's interesting to know, because like you just said, that students hear these names, corporate law, criminal law, civil law, but they largely don't know what it takes to be there and what kind of work they're doing. And that's exactly why we are here, to understand.
Documentations are like transactions. You get a transaction in a, and there's a timeline. There's 24 hours within which you have to submit paperwork. Transactions take, you don't get to sleep, you don't get to eat. You just need to work for those 24 hours to complete a deadline for your client so that you can submit a bid, submit a tender, all of those things. So documentation is really, really crucial to the working of the country.
So, Natasha, here my next question here is, when you talk about these timelines and all of these, is that what are the kind of skills that are required? What are the kind of skills that are required to excel in this career?
Kriti, I will discuss with the skill set overall with every stream, because going into, there is so much. So I'll first say how much diversification there is in this corporate law also. Okay, then you can assess that every skill is good skill in this field. Okay, for instance, the fields in corporate law could be intellectual property, competition law, mergers, project finance, securitization. All these are fields. All these are fields dealing with what kind of compliance a company has to do. If a company has to comply with something which the government has asked it to do, for instance, so then that compliance has to be done with the companies. Most crucial, I think, in corporate law would be your drafting skills. I think your English language and vocabulary do help somewhere.
Sure.
in corporate law. Yeah. So in the universally, law profession is about expressing yourself, being vocal. That's a standard thing. But don't worry if you're a shy person. I'll come to it. There's so many lawyers who are actually so shy in real life. But when they get the spotlight on stage, they are completely different people. So these skills develop over time.
So that
Now,
this
each of these segments, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, Natasha. Just
No,
one
no.
point when you said that, some of the lawyers are very shy. Actually, in my experience, a lot of students come to me saying that they want to take up law as a career because they've been great debaters. Okay. And students who are not able to participate in debating in school usually tend to say that we don't think we can ever get into law as a career because we have hated debating in school. We've never liked it, or we've always been too shy to debate or participate in MUNs and various debating competitions. So do you think is there a direct correlation of debating and becoming a good lawyer? A student should take it as a parameter of success in law
No,
as a
it's what I said. For corporate law, no. So for corporate law, you really don't need the debating skills, the expressing skills. You need to express in writing because this is where you're, and you need to think ahead of your time. If this happens, what can happen? And if this company has losses, you have to anticipate things in advance. So I think your imagination and your writing is more important in this field. Now, as I said, there are 4-5 fields which are further divided industry-wise. Once again, your skills, your academic skills may help you. For instance, M&A, project finance, they are further divided into oil and gas, industry sector specific, because now people have started super specialization, telecom, real estate, labor. You may find any of these fields interesting. You may want to read up every page and every line of any of these fields and become a master of these fields. It's really on the interest. And they are really interesting fields. Designing, fashion law, sports law, so many things coming up these days. A lot of sports enthusiasts read up on sports and history of sports and those NADA testing, anti-doping. So all this is all part of corporate law, and you don't need every kind of skill to be very specific. Okay. Now the second kind of law branch, which is litigation, which when I said advocate, it means litigation. Simply said, people who appear before courts, who need to go to courts. You could just be somebody who's presenting to the court. They're different. Again, your skill sets vary again. So advocate. This is where your jolly LLB link comes in, where you think that courts really are dirty and people are very tacky, but that's not really so. Some part of it about the court depiction may be true, but trust me, I mean, you must have seen a lot of very, very famous lawyers practicing in this segment. I think popular names would be Mr. Harish Salve, or I think these are the names that people usually watch on TV and know.
Yes.
They're all litigating lawyers, very polished, very suave. I've had the pleasure of briefing everybody, most of them on a very regular basis. And this is the quality of litigation in our country. It's not what they show on television, So this litigation is also called dispute resolution because this is actually where you resolve disputes. You are representing one of the parties to a dispute, right? This is slightly less glamorous than the corporate sector. So normal student would ask me, why should I choose for this? Why don't I choose directly for a corporate law? Why go to courts in the sun, in the heat, and practice this when it's uncomfortable, really. It's not so. It's the mere thrill of it. There's a lot of power involved, firstly. Litigation is very, very powerful. You've seen all these public interest litigations happening, laws changing. Some of the most important laws have been created and passed because of judicial activism. The first case, of judicial activism was Harshad Mehta filing cases for, these Kanpur tanneries and cleaning up of the Ganga, because of which the entire environmental laws came into the country, were passed into the country. So you see how powerful this is. The entire gay rights, just because of one litigation. The law has changed today, right? The society has changed. So it's a very powerful medium. Anybody, as I said, anybody can go up to the PIL, whatever you strongly believe in, you can always do it. So this is very, very powerful. That is one, plus point of litigation. Then again, you will say that, I don't have the oratory skills to practice it. As I said, there are lawyers who just don't know how to put two words together. There are lawyers who stammer, stutter. But this profession teaches you. You can't appear in a court on the first day of your, appearance. It takes time. Even for the best orator, it takes time to learn the court skills, to how to present yourself, skill, which will come over time. So don't worry about it. That's what I think. Now, litigation also has several fields, which I think most people ask the question: civil, ki criminal, corporate, kya hai? I'm sure most of you have these questions: ki civil law kya hai, criminal law kya hai? So, corporate litigation, what is this? I'm sure these are the questions that people ask you. So, where civil law deals with it's very simple to understand. It's to do with contractual disputes. To win a dispute, what do you get? You get either money or you get right over a land or a property, or some dominion over some kind of right, and or money. Money. You get some property, land, or right. So it's a contractual dispute. Like the punishment is giving back money or giving the right or something. So this is typically a civil dispute. Arbitrations come under it. As I said, judicial activism is a part of civil law. Because you get to change the world. You get to, Then there's no need to explain that. I think everybody knows. Criminal law is something to do where the punishment is detention, rape, murder, sedition, anything that causes you to go to jail, right? I think after that, there's the most confusing part of law, which is corporate litigation. So it's a mix of both, actually. And again, this relates to what the companies and corporates used to do, corporate law used to do. Only that when a company faces litigation, that's called corporate litigation. How do I explain? A company runs its business, a corporation or a company runs its business. It has to avoid litigation. It has to comply with several laws, okay? It has to comply with company laws, tax laws, FEMA, competition, securitization. It has to comply with lots of things. So when governments sue the company and it defends itself, it becomes a regulatory practice which comes under corporate litigation. When its rivals sue it, it becomes competition law and all of that. So it all comes under this. When its own, it becomes a company law practice, as they say. So there are so many fields, so many interesting variations to law. Then in this also you have industries, Yeah. So I'll give you an example how this all gets linked suddenly. I got the chance to represent my client in the coal scam matter. I'm sure most of you have heard of coal scam matter, right? Where some 213 coal Supreme Court of India, right? So this was, I was representing the Maran brothers, who were the main culprits at that time. And because of which I got to study a lot about the coal industry. How coal mining happens, coal allocation happens, what do you do about coal, how do you mine it, what is the value of coal, gradation of coal, all those things. You have to study a lot. Like, actors prepare for scripts. For movies, we also have to prepare a lot for our things that I learned. Now, when I did that case, and eventually we won because the Maranga brothers got acquitted, we got a lot of coal miners coming to us. I got a very interesting arbitration of coal mining. We dealt with a 5,000 crore claim of a coal miner from the government. That involved, again, tedious coal-related matters. Because you already knew about the coal industry, you could, deal with transportation costs, gradation costs, all of that. Eventually, it led me to a case where I had to defend Mr. Madhu Koda Cam in his bail application. So see, the bail becomes a criminal law. So you are practicing criminal law, but this is industry specific, right? Then eventually I got some cases because of these, because of the extent of study that I've done in coal mining. I got cases in money laundering for coal miners. So this is all linked. I've just given you a web of things, but eventually you find your way through here and there, and you can test, you can leave things. You like certain subjects, you don't like certain subjects. Feel for you, for anybody. No skill set required, no academics required.
Superb. So, Natasha, I think
You
if
were
I were
saying
to
something.
broadly, yeah, so if I were to broadly summarize and bring into perspective what you're trying to say is that, um, lawyers could be working in various domains like criminal law, corporate law, litigation, arbitration, civil law, and they could also be industry specific. So if
Yeah.
they're getting into one particular industry and they have a lot of knowledge about a particular industry, they could be getting a variety of all these different types of cases, which could be in criminal, civil, arbitration, litigation, or anything else in that particular industry, which is a very interesting input. Thanks a lot. Um, I'd like to take one last question from my end, and then we'll take on questions from the chat box. Natasha, what are the industry trends in this career, and what kind of skills? I will come again to the same question. Do you think students who are right now 15 to 18 years old and would be preparing themselves to become lawyers at the end of 7 to 8 years should be preparing themselves with?
Look, I think the only skill that a person requires to become a lawyer is to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. This is what I think one should do and one should keep in mind. And then everybody has a special skill set. If somebody is good with reading, somebody is good with speaking, somebody is good with thinking. And there are so many fields in law that everybody has a place. I'd also like to give you examples who are so eminent today have failed five times in their law colleges, in their academics. And they were declared outright failures by the society, and they have done so well in this industry because they found the passion and the love to do it. Having said that, I think a few skill sets which a person would find very useful across fields is the art of reading. I think the love for reading will really help you because you have to read a lot. Time, if you like to read it, you love to read a lot. It becomes like that. Okay, uh, that's one. Two is, I think, street smartness. I really believe that people should be smart. This is one profession where you don't need to be intelligent. You don't need to be academic. You need to be smart to have your way around things. And I think networking. I really think that this industry works on networking. So yeah, as I said, I really buffed you all on the academic part of it because I didn't see the concern. I went to a law college where most of my friends are from management quota, and and I was from a merit list. Of course, I was from the top number merit list, and there's no difference between any of them, any of us.
Superb. I think that brings
Say
in a
that
lot of,
again, some people,
yeah, that brings in a,
some people participated in moot courts and all of that. Those things that you were saying about argumentative, I was the worst. I was the worst in those. And eventually they turned out to be corporate lawyers and I turned out to be a litigating lawyer.
okay. So which clearly brings in a point, students, that even if you're not a good debater in school, you've not participated in MUNs, you can still go on and consider yourself to be a lawyer. A very important skill, rather, to become a lawyer rather than debating or participating in debates, is to be a good reader. If you're interested in reading, because that's what one skill that you really require to do, you can definitely get into law as a career. Now, a few questions that are there in the chat box, Natasha, is one is, what is the difference between company secretary and a corporate law?
A company secretary would only do secretarial parts of, very, very specific to company law. There are statutory requirements under the Companies Act. So a company secretary is very specific to that. Corporate law field is much larger. It encompasses whatever a company secretary does and much more. So, in terms that a lawyer can foresee the challenges that a corporation or a corporate or a corporation would eventually face. They have to foresee that and have to make those suggestions and watertight the company. Ring fence the company for those, or is client for ring fencing against those problems. Whereas a company secretary can maximum only point it out, nothing else. Can't take action really, I think.
Absolutely. The next question is that there might be some situations which might put you in a dilemma of ethics and what is required. So, how do you balance that?
I think it's your gut feeling that this is okay. So I can tell you that I am representing people who you would say, as public would say, that they're not right people. They've duped the country and they're wrong people. They deserve to be heard. That's what I believe in. As long as it's not, they deserve to be heard. Their point of view needs to be put across. And this is the more challenging part, I think. Easy case is always an easy case, right? You've done the right thing. What are you scared of? But a difficult case is a challenging case where you need to tell your story. Nobody is willing to hear it, and then you really need to convince people that even though I did wrong, maybe this was not the way, or whatever it is. Whatever your defense is. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but there
And
are
our,
some
and our Indian
borders.
constitution gives us the right to put in our point.
Yes, yes. There's also a rape victim, rape accused. It was a pro bono matter. It was a very poor person. He was accused of rape, and he was in prison for 2 years. And he wanted his trial to expedite, and I had to file a petition in the Supreme Court for him. And I was somewhere, morally very, very in dilemma whether I should or should not, because I am somewhere a feminist and all of that. But after hearing his case, I knew that this is a completely false case, because and so I went ahead very confidently representing him. Seeing my confidence, he got the order also. I'm also representing Mr. Tarun Tejpal. Right now, he's in a bit of a dilemma. Although he's got a very good judgment in his favor, he did not molest the girl, and the judgment has at least 16 to 18 very, very credible reasons why it's very clear that it's a false case of rape. But my client is still being hounded by them. I'm doing a lot of media rounds for him as well. So
Super.
yeah.
So, my last question to you, Natasha, is that being a woman, how do you balance between your work and your professional and your personal life? Now, we've had questions in the past also pertaining to specifically girls. And Natasha, before you share your input, I'd just like to say this to the young uh, who are listening here. You are the tomorrow of this country. Please do not let these biases um, get in your way of success. That if you're a girl, you cannot do a set amount of things. Today on panel, we've had two women and two men talking about their careers. That just shows that women are absolutely equal in each and every aspect. Yes, definitely as a woman, we have to balance far more than a man has to, but that should not come in the road of your success. Natasha, over to you to this last question.
I think this profession, more specifically than any other profession, is a little more man specific and slightly tilting towards men. I agree with them. And but having said that, I have not only seen the most respectful attitude of the men, the court staff. I have around 11 years of experience. I would say confidently that I've never been discriminated for being a woman. Having said that, there is a lot to be done in terms of the legal industry, litigation industry specifically for women, because sometimes if you go to remote areas, courts may not have the infrastructure for ladies, but it has increased in the last 5 years. I have not seen a single court which does not have a specific dedicated ladies bar room, ladies washroom facilities. If you have to carry heavy files, there always, so these are some small, very technical things which you think, no, we're women, we don't need to be faced by these challenges. But no, these are challenges. These need to be equated, right? And this has been done. Now, recently there was an episode where, the outgoing Chief Justice gave a remark that, we need more women Chief Justices in India. We've never had a woman Chief Justice in India. And the answer to that a lot of women gave was that, this is a retiring job, this is a rotating job where it needs a lot of transfers. So, women opting for this because, you need to transfer from state to state becoming judges. So we don't opt for it. A lot is being done, let me tell you, to secure women's posts so that they are more comfortable. And I personally work with lady judges in the Delhi High Court, and I know that they are making steps towards this direction also. So I think now the field is becoming level more and more and more.
Superb. Thanks a lot, Natasha. Thanks.